Hey guys, I'm Charles of PremiumBeat, and in this episode, we're gonna go behind the scenes with motion graphics artist Jonathan Winbush and look at his latest crypto art project, which is a music video collaboration with DJ Mixmaster Mike. The project is titled Mob Recipe and involved everything from 3D scanning and working with motion capture suits to building a set in Cinema 4D and finally minting everything together as a crypto art NFT. So if any of those topics interest you, you're definitely going to enjoy this interview, and let's kick things off with a teaser that Jonathan sent over for Mob Recipe.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology. Better than he was before. Better, stronger, faster.
Hey Jonathan, good to have you on, man.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it, man. It's always good to be here on PremiumBeat with you guys.
Now, you've shared quite a bit of behind the scenes stuff with PremiumBeat. Could you kind of brief everybody on what this project is and kind of the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so I've been doing crypto art for a few months now, just kind of getting my toes wet inside of the NFT space there. And I've done a lot of projects with Mixmaster Mike in the past. And so I was talking to him about some of the stuff I was doing with the NFT space. And he was like, we should actually put together like an NFT crypto art album with the audio and visuals together. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm working on the first single with Mixmaster Mike. We're going to be putting it on a super rare, and it's going to be maybe like a 30 to 45 second small music video with one of the clips off his new album that's coming out.
I'm sure a lot of people probably have this question, but as a motion graphics artist, how did you get connected with Mixmaster Mike, and then how did you guys start collaborating together?
Yeah, no, so funny enough, it started way back in about 2015, 2016, about when I started getting into virtual reality. I was doing a lot of just like R&D and messing around with 360 VR stuff. And we had a mutual friend at the time, Tony Washington, which was doing like a lot of his illustration and comic book work because he was coming out with a comic book at the time. And so Tony actually introduced us together because Mike is always like forward thinking and always like dabble into new type of technologies. And he wanted to put out a music video, but nothing traditional. He was kind of looking for like the next elevation. And then Tony told him what I was working on in 360 VR. And so it kind of just mashed together. Like I sent him a pitch of some stuff that I was working on, and the rest is history from there. So yeah, the very first project we worked on was the magma chamber, which I think that's when I met you, right? When we were at a WMAX. So yeah, that was the very first project we worked on, and we've been working together ever since.
Now, one of the behind the scenes images that you shared was of Mike standing in this room full of cameras. I'm assuming that has something to do with 3D scanning. Could you give us kind of an explanation of what that is and maybe where you go to get that process done?
Yeah, so the image that you're talking about is from this company called the Scan Truck. A couple of years ago, they just came up with this concept of like a lot of times when you want to have like 3D scanning of objects or people, you have to go to like a soundstage that's built for it. And these guys, Jigs and Vlad, they actually built that soundstage inside of a mobile truck. And so they call it the Scan Truck because they can actually take it anywhere. They're located here in Southern California, but they could drive it anywhere to wherever you're shooting your movie at, or if you're working on a video game. And they could take the actors, like, you know, if they're working on a scene, they'll come out to the truck, they'll get a full 3D scan of them. So everything is photoreal. They're getting the exact 3D replica of whoever they're scanning in there. And then they take that 3D model and they'll use it for like VFX and movies and video games. In our case, we were helping them test it out. And so we were the very first ones to go in there and do some photogrammetry work with Mike. And so they gave us a 3D scan of Mike and myself, and that's a lot of stuff that you see there. So that's something that I'm going to be using for this crypto art project I'm working on with Mike.
So after Mike got scanned, how much cleanup of the model did you have to manually do? And then what kind of software did you use for that?
So, because I forget how many cameras were in there, but each one of those cameras is taking a different angle of Mike and they're overlapping a little bit so that you get as high a res of an image as possible. And I don't remember the specs right off the bat, but the model came back extremely heavy. So you do have to decimate some of the polygons and smooth it down just so it's a little bit workable. And so I did that using Cinema 4D. And basically I'm only using the head model from this particular scan because I actually built out his body as like a cybernetic character. So if you look at some of the behind the scenes stuff that we're doing, his arms are completely mechanical and they have wires hanging out of them and everything. I was kind of pulling in some inspiration from like the biohacking people. Like they'll actually take like microchips and they'll like put it into like their skin, and they're trying to turn themselves into cyborgs and like making their body control different mechanical things and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool for some inspiration. And so like the only part that's actually human is like his top, like from the neck up. And so that's the photogrammetry part that we're using there. Then the rest of his body is completely 3D modeled out.
So once you guys have the scans and you've created the model, I assume the next step is going to be animating that, and that must be where the motion capture suit comes into play with Mike.
Yeah. So for the motion capture, I'm actually using the Rococo suit, which is like an affordable motion capture solution for more like independent artists. And so instead of, again, going to like a sound stage, you know, like I'm sure you've seen like behind the scenes of people with like those spandex suits and they have all those balls all over them and they're running around the sound stage and stuff. It's like now in 2020, 2021, we can actually have that type of capabilities that we could just do in our house. And so the Rococo suit, it could actually work through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and it has like all the sensors inside a tracksuit. So I was able to actually take my suit over to Mike's studio and he put it on and he did like a full performance there. And that way I was actually able to capture like all his essence and all his hand movements and his body movements and everything into an FBX, in which I could actually bring over and attach it to the model that I created for him.
How difficult is it to rig those movements from the suit actually onto that model in Cinema 4D?
Yeah, so since I've been using the motion capture stuff for a while now, I do like a lot of tutorials on different techniques that I've come up with, just like R&D and use of motion capture with like Adobe Mixamo and Cinema 4D character definition and things of that nature. And so I'm kind of already acclimated into what I was going to do. And so for this particular project, basically I took Mike's motion capture data, did a little bit of cleanup in Rococo Studio, and then just export out an FBX, in which I'm using Mixamo to rig the 3D model because that's the easiest piece of software. Basically, if you have a model in a T-pose, you can actually upload it to Adobe Mixamo, and then it will do like an auto rig in which it puts a skeleton on the model automatically. And then you could bring that into Cinema 4D and basically just to line up the joints and everything, and you're all ready to go. And so I do have a tutorial on it actually. And I mean, the process is like 10 to 15 minutes. It's not that difficult at all.
Now with the creation of the virtual world, you've got Mike in that futuristic DJ booth with all those HUD displays around him. And of course, he's got the robotic arms that you mentioned. What was kind of the inspiration for creating that? And then what was the process of actually creating that in Cinema 4D?
Yeah, so for this particular project, I wanted the environment to also have a story to tell alongside why Mike was in this particular environment. And so I did some digging, and I kind of like that Blade Runner type of environment, like that futuristic but still kind of familiar type of environment. The type of place that I put him into was kind of maybe like a museum at one point, but it hasn't been inhabited in for so long, like maybe like 100 years. And you know, so it's a little bit decrepit. Maybe some people came in and they looted it, and then maybe now it's like a lair for biohackers to go in and do their experiments and things of that nature. And so it has a little bit of familiarity to it, but since it's so far into the future and it's kind of worn down and it's kind of forgotten about, I thought that'd be like a cool setting to kind of put like this bioengineered Mike into this area that no one knows where it's quite at. And so I rendered out like 8 different camera angles. Like some of the angles look like surveillance cameras, like he's almost being spied on inside his secret lair. And yeah, I mean, I'm all about like future tech, and Mike is too. So that's why I was like, we should do something really cool, but not go full like cyberpunk, because that's kind of played out. And so I kind of like cyberpunk with a little bit of modernism, kind of like future, but decrepit type of future, if that makes any sense.
Now, I'm not super familiar with Unreal Engine myself. I know a little bit about it, but could you explain a bit more about that and kind of how that works with Cinema 4D?
So for this particular project, I kind of went through the mentality of how like a game programmer or game developer would go about it. And so a lot of times what they do is, it's called gray boxing. Like they'll build out their level in either Maya, or in my case, Cinema 4D. And it's all just geometry, like no texturing or anything. You're just kind of getting like a layout for how you want your structures to be. And so I have like this structure built inside of Cinema 4D. And then from there, I exported it out to Unreal Engine, because I have a lot of tools there, such as the Megascans library, which is a lot of different textures and photogrammetry, geometry, and a whole bunch of different stuff there. And then also the Unreal Engine Marketplace that has a lot of cool stuff as well. And so what I like to do is I bring in my raw geometry into Unreal Engine, and from there I can actually do some really fine detailing texturing. I do something called vertex painting, where I can actually paint on the geometry, like I'll find different details and stuff. So if I have like a brick wall and I wanted to maybe like paint in some ivory or maybe some like crumbling, I can actually just take it and paint it in, and I could just drag and drop assets from Megascans into there. And so I'm doing this all in Unreal Engine, and the reason I'm doing it there is because since it is a game engine, these things are built to run in real time, because when you're playing video games like on Xbox or PlayStation or PC or whatever, these things need to run in real time because you're interacting with the game in real time. There's no time for it to render or anything. And so that's the biggest thing that I liked about Unreal, is because basically what you see is what you get, and I could work in the viewport so fast. It's like I'm just dragging and dropping and painting, and there's no type of waiting or anything. Like I don't have to do any RAM previewing or like make a small window on the side to kind of like update renders just to see what it's going to look like. Basically, I drop a light in there and I can see what the shadows are going to look like and how reflections are working. And with the new like NVIDIA cards, like with the 20 series and up, they actually introduced ray tracing, which gives us more realistic shadows and more realistic reflections and things of that nature. And so it's really come a long way, and I would say it pretty much looks as good as like if you're using like Octane or Redshift. And so that's the main reason I'm using Unreal today, just because of how fast it is and the flexibility of it.
So when it comes to launching an NFT, what's the process like when you're launching an NFT like Mob Recipe on Super Rare?
Yeah, so the process is basically you have to make a MPEG, and that's going to be the video format that you're going to upload, and you have to put that onto the blockchain, and that's where Super Rare comes in. And so like my particular wallet is called a MetaMask wallet, and that's what handles all my Ethereum and things of that nature. So I'm using a MetaMask wallet to take this piece and tokenize it onto the blockchain, and then from there it gets listed onto Super Rare, and that allows anybody that has Ethereum to make a bid on Super Rare, and then whatever bid you're happy with, that's when you accept it, and then that Ethereum then goes back to your MetaMask wallet, and that's your transaction there.
Now, I know you've mentioned the possibility of a remix, which sounds kind of interesting. How does a remix work with a piece like this?
Yeah, so the performance is exactly the same, but I completely re-rendered everything. And so we're going to have, right now we're calling it like the red pill and the blue pill, because the original one that you saw, like all the GUI, the UI and everything has like these red overtones. The environment is kind of warm. And so for the remix, I re-rendered everything with like the GUI is going to be blue. All the lights are going to be a little bit cooler, and it gives you like a whole different vibe to it. And then Mike went back and actually remixed the entire audio. So all the scratching and everything is the same, but like he added 808 drums. The bass line is completely different, and the intro is different. And so it's going to be almost like a completely different track that they're going to be bidding on.
All right, guys, putting a pause on this for just a second before we close out this behind the scenes look at Mob Recipe. Jonathan actually sent over a few of our own questions to DJ Mixmaster Mike to get his take. And the first thing we obviously had to ask was if Mike ever imagined he'd be performing in a motion capture suit and what that was like.
What can I say? I mean, it's like a match made in heaven using this platform. I mean, from the VR world into this world, I mean, we've always had the ability to unlock all these endless possibilities as far as being a creative within this platform. With motion capture, I mean, anything goes, sky's the limit. I mean, I could display my scratches, I could showcase the world, what I am and what it's like to be an action artist. That's what I am, an action artist. So like I said, this is a match made in heaven.
Next, we had to ask Mike what the inspiration is for combining music with new technology like virtual reality and crypto art NFTs.
Well, with this platform, I mean, the NFT world, virtual reality world, it's like the ultimate platform to actually get into the feel of what the music is about, the raw emotion, the performance of the song. And that's what's missing when you're listening to like stuff on Spotify or whatever, just music in general. You just kind of use your imagination. With this thing, you don't got to use your imagination. You can see it, and you could hear it, you could feel it. You're totally immersed within the song, and that's the beauty of these platforms.
Finally, we also had to ask Mike what it's been like collaborating with Jonathan on so many projects.
Well, the beauty between me and Jonathan's relationship is we like the same things, you know. We come from a hardcore hip hop background, you know. from the 80s to the 90s to now. I mean, we have all that knowledge and all that wisdom. So now we use all that knowledge and wisdom and experience and kind of bring it into the new world and kind of turn the millennials on. Together, we're turning the millennials on to all the stuff that we like, basically. We're recreating what's in our heads, you know. All of this stuff is created in our head. We talk about it all the time. It's just now the world is finally getting to see it and experience it. So yeah, much love to Winbush, man.
Jonathan, thanks again for doing this, man, and thanks for giving us a behind the scenes look at everything.
Yeah, no problem at all, Charles. I appreciate it as always. And if you guys would like to find some more out about me, you can always look me up on YouTube at /Jonathan Winbush. If you want to see these pieces that we just talked about, you can go to superrare.co/Winbush. Yeah, that's about it. So thank you guys again for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys really liked what I showed you here today.
All right, guys, that concludes our behind-the-scenes interview with Jonathan Winbush. Links for everything we mentioned will be on the PremiumBeat blog post, so check for that in the video description below. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.